So let's start at the beginning with when you first file a claim. Let's say it's a brand new claim. You'd file that on a VA form 526EZ. And so at that point, the VA is processing your claim. Sorry for that thunder.
They're processing it though.
Yeah. And so at that point, they will likely schedule you for a CMP exam. They will do initial development, request records. They will ask you for what evidence you have. That tends to take, I would say, several months before an initial decision is reached. I mean, again, it's hard to really give an estimate, but I would say usually less than a year. That's the initial process, or at least the initial claim step. After that, if they issue a decision and you want to appeal it, you're not happy with that decision, it depends on which lane you select for how long the cases are taking. So your first option is called the supplemental claim lane, which is filed on a VA form 200995. That's where you submit new and relevant evidence with your appeal. In that lane, I usually tell veterans the VA is taking around 6 months, more or less. But I very much mean more or less. That's just to give you an idea that we're talking several months. Hopefully not a year, but likely not, a month or two. And that's opposed to the higher level review lane, which there we do see them moving a little bit faster. So there I would say about 2 months on average. But again, that's more or less. Would you say it's about the same time frames that you've seen?
I would say that the higher level review does tend to be much quicker than the supplemental claim, partly because there's no additional development of evidence and no more reviewing of evidence. So when you go into the higher level review, it's put on someone's desk. They can't consider any additional evidence from that claim that you appealed. And so they're just really taking a look and reviewing what's already there and making a determination.
Right.
But sometimes if you do go into the higher level review lane and they notice that there was some kind of error, that maybe they need to get a CMP exam or they need to get additional records or medical records, what they'll sometimes do is issue a decision, which they call a duty to assist error. And what they'll actually do is take you out of the higher level review lane and it'll push you down into the supplemental claim lane so that they can develop additional evidence. And so that would also make your claim go a little bit longer because then they have to go and start doing the development, get the CMPs. And so while you got a higher level review decision, it's not an actual decision on the merits of the claim. It's more a decision saying, I can't do anything with this. We need more development, and shooting it back down.
Right.
And then once you get to that point, you could be waiting for several more months as well.
Right, and it depends on the type of development that they're doing. Most of the time when it is a duty to assist error, it's usually for a CMP exam. And so in that case, it's usually just going to depend on how long it takes for them to schedule the exam. But then there are other times where they will request additional records. Sometimes they'll request service records. And in that case, we've seen them hold that decision for a lot longer because it kind of gets stuck when they have to go to a different agency to request those records. That tends to take a lot longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your third appeal option is to appeal up to the Board of Veterans Appeals. We call that the BVA. They're taking much longer, and we do have a little bit more of an idea of how long these are taking because from what we've been told, the board is not yet deciding cases within what's called the AMA process. So the last that we heard, they're still deciding cases from 2019 within the previous appeal system, which is called the legacy system. So from what we've seen, for the most part, they haven't yet made decisions in this new, again, what's called the AMA system, this new appeal system. So if anything that you have filed from 2019 forward, it's just sitting waiting for a decision. More than likely, again, unless you've requested an expedite and that's been granted. And so how long you wait is going to depend on which lane within the Board of Veterans Appeals you've selected.
So sometimes you may have several claims at different stages of the claims process. So you may have some in supplemental, a couple at the board, and you may have two notice of disagreements filed with the board into different lanes and things like that. So make sure that you're keeping up with where those claims are and what you filed for, just to make sure that you're not duplicating the claims and disabilities that you have, and really not bogging down your claims history.
Right. You don't want to file the same issue or the same condition in two different lanes. That's not going to get you anywhere. It's only going to confuse the system, and it may take longer to get a decision, or they may ask you what you meant because you're not supposed to file the same issue into two different lanes.
Yeah, and we do see that a lot where when different issues are filed into separate lanes, and then it can get quite confusing on the back end when the regional office will start sending you notices saying, we can't process your claim, or we need to have this on the right form, and then you're unsure whether or not that claim is pending, although it might be pending. And so a good rule of thumb is if you have a condition, only file for it once into one lane.